Hello, I'm your instructor Stephen Burns, and in this video we're going to talk about quick masks. Now remember that the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections, and that selections and masks are exactly the same thing. So quick mask is going to be a way to accurately select any portion of your image exactly the way that you want it. Now the limitations of selections is that they're basically proxy shapes to give you an idea of what's being selected. Now I'm going to start right over here with the quick selection tool, and the way it works is it will actually select the similar colors and luminances, and as I kind of spill on over to the bottom portion of the pumpkin, is selecting all the different colors of oranges. And if I missed anything, I can continue to select, and if I accidentally go out, that's okay, because this tool learns. Let's bring it a little bit closer here and hold the Alt key. Let's get in even closer. There we are. And I'm going to hold the Alt key, and what the Alt key is going to do is it's going to take away the selections. Alt, and as you can see right here, you get the minus symbol as I hit the Alt. So it's plus now, which means add to your selection. Hold the Alt or Option if you're on the Mac to take away the selection. So holding the Alt key down, what this is doing is it's learning and giving you the selection that you intended, which is right around the edge of the pumpkin. So there it is. It did the best it could to actually come around here and select. So I'm going to continue to do it. Alt or Option and select these areas. Now it did an okay job. Like I mentioned, merging ants are basically proxy shapes to give you an idea of what's being selected. But what we want to do is accurately select any portion of the image, discard what we don't want, and keep what we do want to be part of our composition. Right down in here is the quick mask icon. Let's click it. Now you can see that the outsides are green. Now by default it's red, and I'm going to double click here and I'm going to change this. So I'm going to click this, and by default when you actually load on the program, it has a red tonality with 50% opacity. Yes, we can also change the opacity here. So if we go back to quick mask, clicking on the icon, this is what you get. Now what is quick mask? If you're working in a black and white lab or graphics arts department, and you have a client that says, I want my portrait of my husband and I to fit within the circle on a black and white sheet of paper, but I want everything else around it to be basically white. So let's go and make a little layer so I can illustrate this for you. And so essentially the customer wants their portraits right in here in the oval. Okay, and then everything else outside here is going to be pure white. In fact, let's illustrate it this way. All this is going to be pure white. Now, what RubyLith does, because your black and white paper is orthochromatic, which means it's only sensitive to blue light, all right? Only sensitive to the blue light in here. Your red RubyLith is just a clear sheet of acetate with a red gel on top. You take an X-Acto blade and you cut out a little oval on that RubyLith, peel out all this area in here, which leaves this to be nice and clear, so that when you lay it on your 8x10 sheet of paper and you expose your portrait right inside the circle in here, your portrait will be exposed, but your everything else on the outside will not. So this will stay white and you'll get your exposed portrait into here. Okay, so that is what RubyLith is. Let's go ahead and turn this off, and let's go back. There we are. So I'm going to hit it again, and we get back our RubyLith. Now, the way that we add RubyLith or discard RubyLith is using the paintbrush. So the trick here is this, and it's not really a trick. You just simply make sure white's your foreground color. White will discard from the mask. Okay? To apply the mask, hit X again to paint with black. Black will now add to the mask. So if you're using a Wacom pen and pad, make sure you click down hard to get a definitive selection here, because if you have a 50% selection in this RubyLith, it's going to actually cut out 50% of the image if you're going to put it onto its own layer. All right, so now what we want to do is I want to inspect the sides of the pumpkin, kind of bring it on down into here. And again, if you look at the reddish color of the ruby leaf, it's kind of conflicting in terms of it's hard to see what we're selecting and what we're not selecting because of the reddish tonality of the pumpkin. So this is what we're going to do. Double click this, just as I showed you previously. Go ahead and get back our nice little lime green, and I'm going to bring it down to 35% opacity so I can see the background as well, and then go back. There it is right there. So I have a nice little edge. It's much easier to see. You can change that to yellow. You can do whatever you want. Whichever one works best for you is all that matters. So I'm going to take away some of the green that spilled over as a result of our quick mask. Hit the X key and define the edge of this shape a lot better. And I'm holding the space bar, and actually I'm pulling my Wacom pen or my mouse toward me. It's much easier to do that. As I get down to these little areas, it becomes a little more awkward in terms of how I'm drawing or how my hand and arm is moving across my body. So I'm going to hit the R key, and that allows me to rotate my image in a direction that's much more comfortable for me to paint. Hit the B key once again and space bar to drag it. Release the space bar. Make sure white's my foreground color, just so that I can start to paint out some of these areas here. Alright, continuing to use the space bar, move across, hit the X key, and there's some grass here I do not want to be included in the selection. I just want the pumpkin. As I come down to here, it's starting to get a little bit awkward in terms of how my hand is moving from I'm right-handed, so I like to move from the top right down to the bottom right in this direction. It's much easier for me. So hit the R key and rotate it this way. Go back and hit the B key again, and with the foreground color being black, I can go ahead and apply my selection. Okay, let's bring this on down, and I'm just going to take a look at it. As you notice, I'm real close. This is the way I want all of my students to be working. Here it is, a little awkward again. Hit the R key. You have to have a graphics card that's going to take advantage of the OpenGL properties so that you can actually use the rotation commands. I'm going to go back to the brush key. If you don't have a good video card, if you have a desktop, purchase one, something that has at least a minimum of 500 megabytes of memory and has OpenGL 2.0 capabilities. Most cards will have that now. They're not that expensive anymore, anywhere from $100 on up. And hit the X key and bring this down across. I'm just outlining this a little bit better. Alright, I'm going to go across here and hit the R key once again, rotate it upwards and inspect these areas. Okay, I'm going to rotate it around. See how fast that works? Hit the B key, make sure black is my foreground color. It actually included some of the background around the stem, which I'm going to exclude here using Quick Mask. Now, when you get used to Quick Mask, it's a very fast process. You just kind of come across here, define exactly what you want to keep and what you want to discard. It'll be very quick. And I'm hitting the R key again so I can rotate this around. Hit the B key, and there we are. Okay, bring this down. And all I'm doing is just defining the edge. Now, if it's hard for you to see the edge, then go outside of it like this, right? And then, oh, okay, I can see the edge. It's a little faint there, but hit the X key and just bring it back. Okay, don't be afraid to go outside the borders, because all you have to do is hit X to bring back your other color to discard or to add to your mask, depending on what you have selected. And there it is. So hit the R key again, and so you can rotate this around. And I love this rotation command. It's so much more convenient in terms of my workflow. And it's complete. So what I'm going to do is go back to Marching Ants. Why? Because the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. So I'm going to hit this little symbol right down here in the bottom. There's my Marching Ants. All we need to do now is alter the colors of the pumpkin, but why not put it on its own layer? Command or Control J is duplicate a layer. However, with the exception is that if you have merging ants, they will duplicate what's inside the selection. Okay, selections and masks are exactly the same thing. It's effectively masking out all areas outside the borders of the merging ants. Command J, put it on its own layer. Look, right there. Pay attention to layers. This is why beginning students often forget this. Photoshop is not really working here. It's working right here in layers. Now, let's go apply a color command to alter the colors a little bit. I'm going to get in a little bit closer. And edit menu or image menu. Adjustments. Why? Because we're going to make a color or tonal adjustment to an image. And I'm going to select what's called selective color. Now, the beauty of selective color is that it will select that color that you have chosen under colors menu and only alter that color. So if I select reds, it will only alter the reds and the reds only. So if I come over here and go black, you can see just how much of that red is in there. And you have absolute and relative. It's going to adjust your or make your adjustments relative to the color that you have existing in your image. This one's much more absolute. That way it just changes it much more drastically. I like, it depends on what you're working in, but I'm going to keep it relative here to make subtle changes. And what I can do is now start changing this to other colors. Okay, maybe adding more yellow, take out the magenta. As we take out the magenta, which is a reddish color, it starts to go more yellow. Okay, let's pull in a little bit more yellow. Okay, starting to turn. And let's go to the cyan. If we take out cyan, alright, see what's happening. If we add cyan in, it goes more greenish. So let's pull it on out, and we have ourselves a nice little yellow pumpkin. Alright, let's go before and after. So, and it's much easier this way because we have this pumpkin on a new layer. If we wanted to make an adjustment to this pumpkin, like make it a little bit larger, Command T, Command or Control T, and if I hold the Alter option and Shift down together, it will resize equally from this rotation point, and it will constrain it. See? Okay, why? Because the pumpkin is now on its own layer. Hit the V key for move, and we can move it up and place it wherever we like. Command 0 will bring it on down. Okay, so that gave you an insight into quick masks, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Enjoy.